It was one of the deadliest yet surprisingly effective techniques a person could unlock in the Dragon Ball franchise, as Dragon Ball Super had graced us all with the return of Kaioken in the anime. But was Kaioken stacked with Super Saiyan Blue wasted, or did it live up to its title? On today's video, we are going to be discussing the execution of Kaioken in Dragon Ball Super, and whether or not it was considered to be a waste in the show, or something that served its purpose in order to open the doors for a new level even beyond that. So grab your popcorn and sit back, because we are going to be discussing the concept of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken in Dragon Ball Super next. If you are new to this channel and enjoy what you see, then don't forget to punch that subscribe button and turn on all notifications by clicking on the bell icon to receive new and daily content on your mobile devices, desktops, and services that I provide, along with following me on these social media platforms to stay connected with me at all times. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's begin. With the reintroduction of Kaioken being used in Dragon Ball Super, fans of the Dragon Ball community were very excited to see the resurgence of Kaioken within Dragon Ball Super. But was the technique executed the proper way all the way through its ending as we've reached the conclusion of the Tournament of Power? Joining me here today to discuss the concept of Kaioken is my good friend EmoshIsLive. Emosh, I wanted to ask you about the concept of Kaioken and getting your thoughts and opinions as to whether or not you believe personally that Kaioken was either heavily underutilized in the show, or if you personally believe that Kaioken as a concept was just a missed opportunity for the writers of Dragon Ball Super to execute properly, in the idea that we saw Kaioken appear during the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament as Goku fought against Hit, and then after that we haven't seen Kaioken basically until Goku had to fend off against Merge Zamasu just for a moment and kicking him away, and then thus later on during the Tournament of Power seeing Kaioken resurge and thus having our conclusive fight between Goku, Vegeta, Jiren, and etc. So my question to you is, how did you feel about the concept of Kaioken? Do you think that it was a heavily missed opportunity for them to execute Kaioken the proper way, or do you believe that, simply put, Kaioken was just overused but done in a very different way to where it didn't feel as big or as important as when we first saw Kaioken as Goku use that against Hit?
All right, so as far as the Universe 6-7 tournament arc, I think that it was portrayed, I wouldn't ask for it to be any better than it was, because it felt hype. We got the classic screaming in both the English and Japanese dubs and stuff like that. So I think I really enjoyed it. I was surprised and I was hyped and I was excited as shit when I first saw it. I was like, oh my God, Kaioken, like, what a blast from the past, right? Now, after that in the Goku Black arc, as far as like whether or not it would have been fear of Goku Black learning it, I honestly feel like he should have used it too. It's as weird as it sounds. I feel like, because I've talked to many fans, I've talked to many people, I've seen many people in dozens of comment sections before where it's like, well, why didn't Goku Black use the Kaioken? Why couldn't he use like other techniques that Goku utilized, basically, right? So especially the Kaioken being one of them, I felt like that would have been an awesome way to not only prolong the arc but make it feel like Goku Black himself is a legitimate threat. And I would say that very much like in episode 114, where even though Kale went berserk again, she got significantly stronger. But it's because they wanted to make it feel like Khalifa was also a relevant part of that episode where they used teamwork and stuff like that. I feel like that's why they kind of like nerfed that level of Kale to the point where not only did she feel weaker even though she had gotten stronger, she really focused too much on Khalifa's well-being for her to be a significant part of that fight, even though she was to a degree. So as far as like Kaioken not being as relevant as it was in the Goku Black arc, I 100% agree with that. I felt like after the hype and after how much we saw in the Tournament of Power, and after the hype of what it portrayed to be in the Universe 6-7 tournament, I felt like, yeah, it should have been utilized a lot more. I would imagine, and it has been stated, that Goku was training a lot after the Universe 6-7 tournament, you know, considering that, you know, he was still under the impression that Monaco was still the strongest being, right? So like you would think that he would train more to utilize that technique, and we saw him use it, but only for like a short spurt to kick Merge Zamasu in the face and then knock him down. After that, we never saw it again. I 100% agree with that assessment when you say that he should have used that as a rage boost when he found out about Chi-Chi and Goten. I 100% agree with that. We did. Why didn't we see it? Why didn't we see the Kaioken Kamehameha wave against basically Merge Zamasu when he was fighting his Holy Wrath attack, like we saw it against Hit?
Absolutely.
You know, 100% agree that we should have saw that, because Super Saiyan Blue Goku without resorting to Kaioken, pushing back Merge Zamasu, and no, he was not suppressed because he actually tries to push Goku back with more power. We didn't see that. Instead, we saw a kick to the face. So I think that in that part, it was definitely poor writing. I think especially in episode 109, when we saw Goku go Kaioken, we thought that it was just Kaioken. And then all of a sudden we found out that no, he is using Kaioken times 20. So when you compare that event to the Universe 67 tournament, completely subpar, completely underwhelming. And even though when we found out that, wow, not even Kaioken times 20 blue works on Jiren, a suppressed Jiren at that, it didn't feel as hype though. You know what I'm saying? If anything, the Genki Dama with Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 felt a lot more impactful as opposed to his fight with Jiren. So I felt like it was definitely a poor, I don't want to say poor writing, but I want to say a poor use of like hype moments that they could have used, if anything. So
I definitely feel like Kaioken was wasted after the Champa arc because we saw how glorious I think Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 10 looked in facing off against Hit for the first time. The glow, the aura, Goku coming off and telling Hit there was a slight chance for him to even die in performing this to begin with. And then we got into the Goku Black arc, and I felt like it would have really made sense for Goku to use it then, because the reason why Goku had used that against Hit to begin with was because it was a last reserve. So I just didn't understand the concept of Goku not using that as a last reserve and having to fight off against Goku Black or Merge Zamasu, who were exceptionally more powerful than Goku was until they went back into the present, which I felt like you said, against Merge Zamasu, it would have been very interesting at that point to see what Kaioken times 10, or if anything, pushing him to Kaioken times 20 would have done if he were to encounter Merge Zamasu and fighting Goku Black as well. And I also think that the concept of Kaioken was heavily underutilized during the beginning of the Tournament of Power arc, but then overutilized during the end, because what was the point of giving Goku Kaioken times 20 after everything was said and done, even before the imperfected version of Ultra Instinct, if it never meant anything afterwards to begin with? And I'll give you an example. It would have been that much more meaningful for Goku to use Kaioken times 10 and then later times 20 when necessary in the tournament before fighting Jiren, because it would have built up Goku in that sense in presenting a fighter who was able to multiply his power that much more to a degree where not only does he have Super Saiyan Blue, but stacking on top of that Kaioken times 10 or 20, and then after clearing house in almost seeming invincible when in that scenario, coming across Jiren then, and then Goku in his confidence can say, okay, well, in that situation, I could be able to go against you no problem, and then get struck. But instead, for the first time, Goku goes head-to-head with Jiren. They have not an evenly fought battle, but Goku was more or less on the offensive early on in episode 109, and then just as quickly as Goku used Kaioken times 20, he got blitzed out of the form before using the Genki Dama, and then having to use Kaioken times 20 again to push the Spirit Bomb, it was heavily underutilized. But then after Ultra Instinct, many episodes later, we see him using times 10, times 20 in his fight against Jiren, in his fight against Kefla, and I felt like it was kind of like unutilized, I think, to a degree, because where was this power before in building it up, in building the actual power up to mean something in this scenario? So do you feel as if Goku will ever introduce Kaioken going into the film, or maybe going into the new series? Because it was an homage to, you know, go back to see how far Kaioken has come since the Saiyan arc, since even Dragon Ball, in paying respects to that and adding that to Super Saiyan Blue. But where do you see Kaioken in the future? Do you believe it's more or less now a useless technique, even though it does tax the body a lot? I felt like it was poorly taxed on the idea that where we saw the Tournament of Power arc come and go, and not once did Goku get taxed from using such power, but only during the Champa arc, weirdly enough, which I felt like, again, was poor writing. But where do you see the future of Kaioken, and do you believe that they should have built up Goku in using Kaioken to begin with during the Tournament of Power before fighting Jiren, or do you believe that it was best kept the way it should have been in having Goku have to team up with Evolution Blue Vegeta to take him on, or do you believe a different outcome should have happened in Goku using Kaioken?
I think that, well, to add on to what you were saying real quick, I think that we can agree that Jiren was just that strong, right? So I kind of understand why Kaioken did nothing, but I just felt like they could have just maybe hyped up that sequence a little more. The fact that Goku is using Kaioken times 20, the fact that he only just powered up into Kaioken and then just like it was just stated that no, he is in 20, but in every other instance he was like Kaioken, you know, and then Jubi Kaioken, and that like they really emphasized at that moment, and they really made it seem impactful. So I would say that, yeah, in that scenario, it was definitely underutilized, but I think Jiren, regardless, was just that strong. But then the problem was that Jiren was introduced, you know, just for the sake of like the 1 hour special, was introduced so strong that afterwards he just felt like not as strong anymore. He felt like he was just holding back on purpose. He was just like nonchalantly just saying, okay, well, I'm not going to end the fight right now. I think Jiren is very much like Madara in the sense where, for those of you guys who watch Naruto Shippuden, Madara was so strong that even the author himself said that he didn't really know how to kill him off. So basically he had Black Zetsu betray him. In this scenario, Jiren was so powerful that they really had to just make him feel like, yeah, he doesn't really care about the tournament anymore. He doesn't really care about anything. But then in the end, he's just all of a sudden like, no, I'll never go through that pain again. And he just goes batshit crazy and fighting MUI Goku and stuff like that. So I would say that, yes, Kaioken did feel underutilized initially versus Jiren. But then afterward, Goku continued to get Zenkais and get stronger. And then all of a sudden, Kaioken felt like it had more of a placement there. But even then, they just didn't say Kaioken that's way. It was just Kaioken, and that was it. So we assumed that he was using times 20, and then from there, it just went completely haywire. I think that in comparison to Vegeta, for example, I think the issue with Kaioken, I think Kaioken in general, or Kaioken times 10 or 20, whatever you want to call it, really made it an issue for Vegeta because it also made Vegeta only feel like he had become equivalent to that level of Goku. Despite him doing a little better than Goku in their fight against Jiren, for example. Vegeta was able to take more hits. It seemed like he was a little more aggressive and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it still felt like he was marginally stronger than that level of Goku, who had gotten Zenkais after getting his ass kicked a multitude of times. So as far as the future is concerned, I would say that we're definitely going to see more. We should see more, considering that Ultra Instinct was an accident. It's something that he has to be incited into doing. So with that, yeah, Kaioken is still very likely something that we would see, hopefully assuming that Vegeta still has access to his evolution form. So I would like to see more of it, but I would like to see more of it as to where it means something, to where it's like, wow, he's stronger, he's faster, his perception of his five senses is also multiplied and stuff like that. So yeah, I do overall feel like when we first saw Kaioken, it was great, and then it just lost its oomph that it had originally.
It felt needed against Hit, because Hit was like someone that we never saw before, in the sense to where he was manipulating time in such a way to where people were just like, what's he doing? And he was just skipping time. He was time skipping Goku, and that was such an interesting thing to see. But then afterwards, during the Goku Black arc, if not the Tournament of Power, they should have utilized that more during this arc, because this was an arc to where you were fighting not only yourself to an extent, but also a being that was immortal in nature. You couldn't really beat him just based on raw tenacity. You had to have a huge increase in power to even destroy their mortal bodies to begin with, like their actual, you know, vessels, before, you know, of course, we saw the universal Zamasu come into play. So what are your thoughts on the poor execution of just seeing Kaioken Goku just kick Merge Zamasu in the face once, and that was all she wrote, in destroying the Ring of Light?
I don't want to say, I feel like it wasn't that it was poor, it was just not utilized enough. They could have milked it a lot. I personally, everybody I've talked to, and I've talked to quite a few like people, and I'm not trying to like stroke myself or anything, but for the majority of the people, like the look of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. Like it's a very aesthetically pleasing look. It's something nice to look at. When Goku goes Kaioken, it's like, wow. Like when he went Kaioken against Gohan, it felt like it meant something, not for Goku, but it meant something for Gohan, for example. Like when Goku went blue, it was like, whoa, okay, hold on. I know Gohan's not this strong all of a sudden. Then he's like, no, at full strength, and Goku goes Kaioken. I was just like, oh my goodness,
yeah,
insane. It felt hype again, but not because it was Goku going Kaioken. It was because it was Gohan fighting Kaioken Goku, even if it was for that one scene. So much like the Universe 6 and 7 tournament fight against Hit, that fight with Gohan, it felt like the same hype was there. But then it could have been used more against Goku Black and Zamasu and stuff like that. It could have been used maybe. It could have felt more aesthetically pleasing and hype against Jiren, even though Jiren was just that damn strong to just completely body that level of Goku. But once again, it's just, I feel like they it was a hit or miss. You know what I'm saying? Like, they missed at some opportunities that they had to make it feel like it was memorable, and then they just basically just said, okay, here, let's just throw Kaioken in there, and all of a sudden it doesn't mean anything. I understood why they did it. I just felt like Kaioken was a blast from the past. Anything that was a blast from the past felt like it was major impact. Mofuba, for example, every time we saw the Mofuba, it meant something, right? It was hype, it was exciting, you know, amongst other things as well. So the Gallic Gun, for example, when we saw that again, it was like, wow. Gallic Gun with copy Vegeta, especially in the English dub, for example,
that was a shock.
It was
too.
like, wow, right? So it was wow. So once again, it's like they didn't really utilize a lot of moments that they had, and I feel like this has something to do with Toei, for example, just being completely disconnected with the fan base. Sometimes I feel like they don't take their fan base seriously. It's not me hating on them. It's just it's a legitimate criticism, not to take away from the series. But I think Kaioken, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken, is such an aesthetically and visually pleasing form or a state of being that every time we see it, it should feel hype at every single time. So, yeah, it's not so much that it was poor writing. It's just more like they just really didn't capitalize on instances that they could have just made it feel more exciting, in my opinion.
I really thought by the end it was kind of weird to see how Kaioken was portrayed, because at the end of the Tournament of Power, we get to see Kaioken actually be executed the proper way in being utilized against Jiren, and seeing Goku more or less use that. But just to me, I felt like before introducing Ultra Instinct, they should have allowed Goku to really go all in using Kaioken before going into that. Even though it's subjective for me to say, I just feel as if personally Goku should have executed that a bit more, as we saw during the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament, in allowing that to be his trump card before tapping into a new power, because it's basically inevitable that Goku was going to discover a new form to begin with. We knew that since the beginning of the arc, but I just felt personally that the execution of Kaioken was done very poorly, especially in the beginning of the Tournament of Power arc, not more or less towards the end, because there was no other option but to allow Goku to use Kaioken with Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta to fight Jiren. But I feel like as a whole, they could have executed that concept in a much better way, and I really do enjoy the Kaioken concept. We haven't seen that since Dragon Ball Z, and you know, Kaioken as a whole is very special because I don't recall any instances where we saw Kaioken in GT, so it was really cool to see its reintroduction in Super. I just felt like they should have pushed the envelope with that in allowing Goku to basically cap out in using Kaioken as much as he could before tapping into Ultra Instinct. And by the end of Super, it was really interesting because when Vegeta had questioned Goku can use Ultra Instinct again, Goku said, well, I can't, it's something that I tapped into accidentally. So I'm hoping to see Kaioken return once more, because I really do appreciate the amount of power that Kaioken adds onto whatever form Goku is using at the time, and I feel as if the power itself ought to be portrayed a bit differently, because I really did enjoy the way the coloring looked for Kaioken times 10 as opposed to Kaioken times 20, especially when we saw Kaioken times 10 for the first time in the fight against Hit, because that really made everything feel that much more bigger than what it was, and I really did appreciate the execution of Kaioken stacking that with Super Saiyan Blue at the time. But in the end, we would like to know what you guys have to say down the comment section below. Do you guys agree in the idea that Kaioken was wasted, or do you guys agree on the idea that Kaioken was basically executed in the proper way? We would like to know your thoughts down the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys are new to this channel, hit that subscribe button, guys. Turn on all notifications. Leave a like down below if you guys enjoyed. Tune back in for more. Check out EmoshIs channel. I will leave a link to his channel down in the description box below. Tune back in for more, and we'll be seeing you all in the next Dragon Ball discussion video. Cue my motherfucking outro, bitch.